Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and disembodied hands queen, Quindy, and subsidiary hands, Justin and John, although usually they seem to be just ears these days, not real hands. I don't know. I haven't seen anything active for a while. But, and are you going to come in, Keeks? You going to say hi? Come on and say hi. Do you want to come say hi to the stream? Do ya? Where's my girl? Where's my girl? You coming? Well, come on, silly. She's like, I'm wagging at you, but I don't know if I wanna. Do you not want to come say hi? You can say hi. Yeah, good girl. Come on up. Good girl. There's my girl. There's my girl. Yay. Good girl, Kiki. Good girl. Yeah. All right. Really brief Kiki, because she is a little bit of a whippersnapper today. Good girl. You've got your bully, right? Good girl. All right. You have a good morning. Actually, you know what? I'll give you a special treat real quick. Hold on. Hold on. There. What do you want? Do you want? Come on. Sit. Sit, Kiki. Sit. Kiki, sit. 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 No, sit. Yay! Good girl. This doglet, people. This doglet. Okay. Woo. There we are. All right. Oof. Yes, it's the Keeks. She's, I don't know. We'll see how she is today. She's been kind of a devil the last few days, but David thought she was getting better this morning. All right, so what I want to do today is green work. I was thinking about this base and whether I could actually work it with little plastic pieces, but I think green is going to be the best way to do it. Maybe a little bit of plastic card if I want to really suggest evenness, but with the way that I've got it graded, like where it's coming down in a gentle slope, because I have to, because that's the way I did the base. I'm not sure if I want to do plastic card or not. Yeah, Cornico, I've had weird Amazon things like that too. I'm going to move back one. Get in focus. All right, so alrighty, so we did a lot of green work on this guy, but we're going to actually do more green work today. So what I would like to do with him, oh, mold line over the fingers. What I would like to do to him is to essentially fill out this spell effect that we have armatured. So I want to do, just like this underlying effect has some texture to it and little bits coming off, I want to do a little bit of green work to give us, give our water effects a bit of a frame to work from. So I'm going to do just a little bit of green to make this coil more irregular, because what we're going to do is we're going to green out the coil and maybe change a little bit on the existing sculpt. We're going to put kind of an arrow shape at the end of this little thing, so it doesn't just cut off like that in a blunt end. And we are then going to, once the green is set and everything, we're going to actually paint it in the color we want the spell effect to be before we put the water effects over it. So, oh, I just want it to be like crumbling big flagstones, not the cobblestone. I want big graveyard flagstones, Pendrake. I just don't want, the problem with doing the plastic card, and I go back and forth on it a lot, is that to really do the plastic card, I should cut her off the base, and I've already decided not to do that. So really, this is just me going back and forth on something that I probably won't do anyway. So all I want is a big, like, kind of few big flagstones, and kind of have them all broken and have these guys sinking down a little bit. So I can do that with green, probably more effectively than doing it with plastic card. The only reason to use plastic card, and it will give you more of a structured effect, but if your stone is very worked and you want a flat tile kind of look, then you want the plastic card more. But if it's not tile, if it's actually like broken up big flagstones, I don't think it's as important because flagstones are usually pretty irregular if they're ancient and have had people walking on them for a long time. So it's not as important to have them even. They were more often rough cut. So that's the only thing, Pendrake. And I know what I want. So it's like, I just keep going back and looking, well, I could do this on this base, and it's more like a teaching opportunity, but I also don't think it'll work as well. So we'll just do the big stones, big flat stones. But this guy, yeah. So we've got, what we did last time is we put some super glue on this guy so that he would be, it would give our, there we go. We have to make sure to keep that wire at the right angle. So it would give our wire a surface that the green stuff could cling to better, which is a Julie tip from green users. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit of green work around this wire to make it less regular. I'm going to try to see what I can do to make it just look a little more interesting. We're going to join it up with this spell effect here so that it's all like just swooping energy, and we'll see what we do. I just had a rough idea heading into this model of the kind of spell effect I wanted. And this wasn't that, just that basic one wasn't it. I wanted a little bit more dynamism. And so this is something that you couldn't necessarily do and put it on mold, but it's something you can do with conversion. And that's why we're doing this today. But since we're working with green, we can also use that green to fill out little Necromancer baby's base. All right. Yeah, so let's mix up some. Let me check that hand. There's a nasty mold line running over the back fingers. And I've tried to take it off a couple times, but it's really embedded. It's getting a little bit better now. It's just in a terrible place, which is, you know, usually we don't see this on bones models. We don't, Bones USA, we don't see this kind of thing, but this particular guy, I might have to do some green work to fix these fingers. Because take the mold line out, I'm having to really gouge them. So that may be something that has to happen. But yeah, I'm less concerned with Necromancer's base. I'm more interested in this guy's cool spell effect. So Necromancer's base is just something that we are doing because we are also working with green stuff. We also haven't done like big flagstones necessarily before. All right, well, that's the way it's going to be until I... No, actually, that would not work at all, Pendrake. That would not work at all. And the reason is, again, to do that, you need to cut her completely off her base, and we'd have to do a completely different base. Plaster is not good at thin sheets. And for this, I would need thin sheets, which is why I would have to go with a real thin plastic card if I was going to do this. Now, I could use plaster to do an underbuild and to add texture. I could absolutely use the plaster for that. But I could not do the big sheets like David did on his Iron Man. You want a big chunky thing usually with plaster if you're going to do that kind of effect. If you do it like really small, it powders. So you want it thick. And to do it, and this is not doable thick. Do you see what I mean? Like you really want to go thin with this. If I wanted thick and chunky, and even then, like thick and chunky wouldn't work for this size of base. So plaster, I feel, has certain attributes that make it much better for larger things. And it isn't as good for small stuff. Because keeping it at a thickness that you can use it and break it effectively and yet still have it be in scale, that's the hard part. Because a little sheet of plaster is kind of a misnomer in my mind. Like, it's hard to keep it that thin and keep it from just powdering. Like, because plaster of Paris is fragile. If I was using dental plaster, it'd be different, right? I could do something thinner, but even then, I've worked with her starts. Those thin plaster things, they're so breakable and they're so fragile. It's just not, I don't think it's really efficient. That's why I'm not doing it. I mean, I've got all sorts of putties and things to play with, but when it comes down to it, all I want is a simple, bigger flagstone base because I hate these cobblestones. Because it makes it look like she's on a town street, and I want her in a cemetery. More in an ancient, graveyard kind of thing. So that's why we're doing that. So it's not really... Mostly, I'm not, like I said, I'm not concerned with doing, like, a big, like, production number on her base so much as I'm mostly wanting and focused to work on this guy, and I just happen to have extra green stuff when I do this, so we'll work on her base also. But yeah, plaster is something, if you're going to work plaster, you want to, for basing, you want to work it separately, and you want to make sure your bottle is cut off the base or naturally just is on a slot of base so that you can easily separate it and pin it into the plaster. You know, so that you can work with those bigger sheets. Yeah. If you want to do little stuff, Milliput is so much better than plaster. You can, Pendrake, but have you ever worked with her starts? Like, her starts molds, like, all the stuff is chunky to a certain extent because it's so fragile. If it gets thin, it breaks at the breath. Like, it's really, it's not the kind of material I would want to do that. I would use Milliput if I was going to do that. Milliput or Aves. Maybe even wood putty. Like, wood putty would actually be almost the best. Like, the stuff that David uses. So, plaster's not the right material. If you use Milliput or Aves or wood putty, then you can still break it. It's brittle enough to break, but it's not like powdery. It isn't going to like just disintegrate when you try to break it and work with it. And you don't have to keep it nearly as thick. You wouldn't even need 2 millimeters thickness. You could go real thin with those things. And you can get that shattered appearance a lot easier. David usually uses wood putty for it. And it's just a better it's a better product than plaster for doing thin plates. If you want to do thick plates like his Iron Man, then plaster's great, especially if you do the rebar thing. But even then, he was struggling with it a little bit because it's just powdery. Unfortunately, there's no room under my camera to really do that safely. I would certainly not do it in here because this is a glass desk. So you are never going to see me hitting stuff with a hammer. David's got a wooden desk. He can do it. But my art desk here is tempered glass. But yeah, so essentially, Pendrake, what I'm not saying is that you can't do it. You could do it. But it's not the ideal material, in my mind. It's not the ideal material for doing thin sheets. It's persnickety for that. So I think I would use, David uses wood putty, and he's like tried everything a little bit. He's much better at basing materials than I am. Whoa, what is this mold line on the underside of this beard? Why are you suddenly popping all over with mold lines, dude? Seriously. Here I want to do a cool spell effect with you, and you're giving me trouble. But yeah, so could you do it with plaster? Yeah, you could. Would it be the best material? No, not really. There are a lot of different materials out on the market now, and just like with different paints and different, like mediums and stuff like that, it benefits you to figure out what's best for certain things so that it gives you the least amount of trouble and you get the effect you want. Yeah, he has evil mold line magic. I agree. Although at least this one I could get with my knife for the most part. We're almost to our class this weekend on Saturday. Again, I won't be streaming this weekend because we have Mark Masklins in town, and he is I forget which country he's from. Is he Spanish? Where is Mark from? I was going to look that up. Let's look. Let's see if I can figure it out. I could just ask David, I suppose. Masklin's Miniatures. Barcelona. So he is Spanish. Yep. So yeah. We will see. So either he has a really good translator or he's really good or he's got really good English. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what that class is like. We'll see. I'm very interested. I'm gonna ask him all sorts of technical questions. I'm armed. If he has like really good English, I'm gonna be asking him all sorts of stuff. He's gonna be like, "Who is this chick?" Because I think I'm off the radar of most of the Europeans. They don't know who I am. Luca's the exception. Luca and there's a couple of guys who know, but otherwise, I don't paint in their style, and I don't generally, I think, like post on where they post and stuff like that. Yeah, Spain, it used to be France and Italy, and now it's definitely Spain has boomed into this miniature painting insane talent area. Because probably because there are essentially when you get really good mini painters in an area, you tend to beget really good mini painters in an area, because then the people who are close have like they're able to easily learn from those people, right? So because it's it's close, you can actually go to those seminars and learn and things. So I think that that and the more like just the more people of your country are like doing it, the more accessible it is to you, the more you are likely to encounter the hobby, that kind of thing. So oh no, this shouldn't scare you. I mean, it's really strong, Kuroniko. It weathered my move cross country just fine because it's really strong tempered glass. It's not fragile. It's really beautiful. Like it actually is. It's silver gray for the powder coated fixtures, and then it's got the kind of aluminum or chrome steel supports, and then it's got the glass is actually this pale blue tint. So it's like it's an art glass I got on Dick Blick when I had a big gift cards. Like I think I had like $500 worth of gift cards saved up, and I just blew it on a really nice art desk because I always wanted one. And it adjusts. It will adjust and do 2D art, but I always keep it flat because I use it for miniatures. But yeah, so it's a beautiful, beautiful desk, and it has never broken, even though I moved it from my old house to my new house, and then I moved it from my new house to California, and never had any problems. It's really well supported. There are different kinds of glass, though. Once I understood that. All right, so let's mix up some stuff. Let's mix up some putty. Let's get going on this. So I'm going to mix up a fair amount because I want to work on flagstones in addition to the little... We're going to work with our fresher green on our little spell effect, and then we're going to go and take it over and make it basing stuff. So I want about a little bit more yellow than blue. There's really no, because it's got a drawer. It's got a metal powder coated drawer that's right underneath this area, Pendrake. And you don't want underneath light as a light box. You want so ideally in your light box, you've got lights, fill lights. You want fill lights from kind of slightly in front, left and right, and above. So like it's hard to kind of show, but like this, if this was my light box, if this was a box and there was a mini down here inside of it, I would be pointing my lights up here, like pointing through, but from above, and the mini would be back a bit, so that I would get that diffused above light from both sides, so it's lighting both sides and it's also bouncing around. But then down in front, and this is the one that people miss, down in front you really want a fill light. You don't want an underlight so much as you want just a fill light, because with miniatures you've usually got a base, so an underlight doesn't make sense. But if you put a light down here, like kind of at the level of the floor, and you kind of point it in, and you want it to be diffused, so you need to throw a diffuser over the front, or you need to back it up a lot if you're just using a lamp, and that way you will illuminate all the shadow areas, right? You'll get an even light over the front of the model, and then you've got those lights from both sides. And that'll give you a more or less like natural diffused lighting look. Those are the 3 lights you need. Oh, I got another review. Aw, that's good, Turgeon. Yay, thanks for telling me. I'm glad we got another Amazon review. We've got 7. Yay! Oh, tracing. Oh, I see. Maybe. I'd have to remove this drawer, but Pendrake, I actually have a light table. So I would actually just use that. It's easier. You could do it that way if you wanted a real cheap light table, although I don't know that it would be the best, because the problem, the glass here is kind of here, let me see. So it's kind of, see how it's kind of smoky. It's a pale gray blue. So you can see kind of how it's turning that pink scissors kind of a grayish raspberry color. So because of that gray, I don't think it would be the best light table. You usually want a cleaner light So, hey, Tyler. But yeah, that's great. I'm really glad I got another review. That makes me happy. We'll get up to 10. We'll get up to 10. Then we'll release book 2, and then we'll need to get up to 10 again. Yeah, getting good lighting for your work area is really, really smart. And it just, like, for one thing, it spares your eyes a lot. People always used to ask me if I got eye strain from painting minis. So there was our two pieces. I think we have slightly, we're probably pretty equal, but I think we've got slightly more yellow than blue. I'll be able to tell when I mix it. Oh, okay. Yeah, you could do that. If your lights are strong enough from the top, you could put white paper in front of the mini as long as it didn't occlude in front of your, it didn't interfere with your camera. But having white in frame of your shot, white and black in frame of your shot helps to white balance anyway. So yeah, that would be a good idea, Pernico. I like that idea. You could do that. I always used the fill light just because I had an extra light already set up because I knew I was going to want one. Oh, it's not hard. Walking harder, I use these cheap LED lamps from Amazon. The ones we use at ReaperCon and Paint Club. The company is Tautronics, T-A-O Tronics. They're LED lights. They're an L shape. The new ones have a lot of adjustability. But at Paint Club, I would just use 2 of those. And because it's a light bar, I could have it like this or have it like this. And I could have an even light like all through coming from both directions. They adjust with color. They'll go with a bluer light if you like that, or a warmer light if you like that. And they've got brightness settings, so I can dial it down or I can dial it up. So, and they're like, I think the older versions are like $45 each. And they have a USB port for charging your phone or plugging in your Dremel tool or, whatever, your mini Dremel. Yeah, so each one of them has a USB port. So I usually use them to like charge my phone if I'm using it for references, or if you're using your iPad for photo references, you can just plug it in while you're using it. And yeah, they are very, very inexpensive, travel friendly, because they fold up. They're really easy to deconstruct and construct. Hey, Sky's Clear. Thanks for the Prime sub. 44 months. Dang. It's insane. I had to do my first quadruple sub-anniversary song yesterday. Yeah, I mean, that works too, right, Korniko? My problem with the IKEA lights is the color of the light isn't what I like. So for these, there's reading, and that's the normal kind of daylight mode, which is what you're seeing right here. And then there's actually a study light is more blue. It's hard to see because I've got my big ring light up too, but hold on, I have to get this back down low. There we go. And then there's, usually those are the 2 that you want to do. The Relax is more of a reddish light, so you'd use that in the evening and not for painting, but for your badge. Yeah, exactly. LED lights. I went with LEDs because I was just... That probably works fine, Korniko. All right, so got our ball of green. So let us do some stuff. I want tiny spoon for this. And I want also big spoon, mega spoon. And I want smoother. I don't know if I really need smoother. We'll see. But yeah. I'm going to grab Julie's tool, and I'm going to grab her nice little texture stamp that she made for me, because I want to put some stone texture onto the base thing. And let's just grab all these tools. All of them. All of the tools. All of the tools. Excellent. But yeah, just so you know, good lighting is not unaffordable. Like, mostly what you need is a good, strong, bright light that's more in the neutral range. That's not too warm, not too cold. And some people really like the blue lights because they can bring out details, but I find them very problematic as far as seeing colors correctly. So yeah, Don't think you have to buy expensive big Neewer ring lights. I have one here, but I have it entirely for lighting me. It also, now what I'm doing here is I do have it here, but I also have my LED light right here on the other side. So they balance each other out. Yeah, I mean, if you can function with one. In the evenings, I usually function with one. It really depends on what I'm doing, though. If I'm doing really chintzy freehand, then I usually want my whole setup. All right, so this is a lot of green, and as you can see, it's way too thick for what we're doing. So we're going to stretch it out. Stretch it way out until it's a really thin little snake. And then we're going to kind of play around with it. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I've never done this before, but you know what? We're fine. It'll be okay. But this looks like actually it might be a good thread for the arrowhead. So let's pop that onto there. If I can get it to stick. Unfortunately, it prefers to stick to skin more than it likes to stick to wire. So this will be fun. I'm probably going to have to point it with my fingers after I wrap it around that. I'm going to use Julie's leaf tool to play with this a bit. Yeah, exactly. As long as it works. All it needs to do is work. Work for you. I really like these LED lamps just because they're relatively affordable. They're versatile. They've got the USB port. So just using my fingers to really point. I just want like kind of a rough, like magical arrow kind of look. Kind of thing. And then I'm going to take this tail and wrap it around. And that's way too, I can tell now that I've got it here, it's way too thin, but it's going to help make this, this little brass rod look a little bit more irregular. So I don't need to be real fancy with it. So now I'm going to cut into it a little bit. I'm going to take a look at it from all angles. You don't want it to look good from just one angle. But that's pretty good, all things considered. I just wanted it a little pointed at the end. More like an arrowhead. And I want this a little irregular. So we want it to loop around, and I can tell that the green is sticking to the wire very well actually up here where the super glue is, so that's really cool. A Julie tip, patented Julie tip. It's a little hard to do this because Yep, that sounds right. Yep. Except I've got black ones, not silver. I don't know about metal. I guess they've got metal components, but mine is plastic. So I've got to just kind of work with this very gently because the wire is so thin and it's still pretty bendy. But yeah, so I want it to be kind of swoopy. I've got plenty of time to work with the putty. The more arrow-like I can get that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it looks really good from that angle. Looks really good from the front. We like that, right? We like it when it looks good from the front. Oh, it's going to be purple and green because he's evil. That's always been. I've always intended to do a dark purple with a bright neon evil magic green. Virulent green. Which is funny because I just did that Spring Greens PDF yesterday for the Patreon. Finished it up. So I'll be using some of those colors. All right, I'm going to see what I can do here. I want more kind of wraparound. I also want to join these up though, so grab that. Just going to grab a little bit of green. Yes, exactly. If you intend to put the piece on mold, to never use super glue. It will melt under vulcanization and ruin a mold, among other things. Kevin has instructed me. So let's just actually kind of braid these together, just kind of see if I can get them to kind of spiral shape. Let's do that. I mean, play around, right? You don't like, we're not going to put this sucker on mold. It's just a conversion. So the only thing that matters is that you like the look of it. So let's try to play a little more. So we can essentially play off of this this wire and use it to support some finer tendrils of green. We need to make sure that there are no like really fragile tendrils sticking out unsupported because they don't have a wire armature under them. But we can do things like wrap them around this this wire to make it a little more interesting. And what we're going to be doing is working our water effects off of this green stuff. So we need to give it lots of interesting surfaces to play with. So I'm going to just make an extra little loop there. See how we're coming along now? We've got some more interesting shapes here. So I'm going to blend this green in so it's coming out of his hand just like the regular spell effect. I'm going to wrap it a little bit around this wire. I don't want to totally blend it in, I think, but maybe I do. The braid was cool, but I can keep that braid now and just stick it to the wire. And then this little strandy thing here is kind of cool. We can bring that up. So we can make essentially a couple of extra loops there. See how that makes it look more interesting and intricate. And if I keep these little loops relatively close to where it's shielded by the wire, they should be okay once they set. Oh, okay, so it's a Tautronics. Yep. Yeah, I really like that brand. I really like the Tautronics there. They're usually pretty inexpensive, especially the older models, so you can choose one for your purpose and budget. And I mean, I've had mine for ages and they still work. I mean, that's the nice thing about LEDs. They will dim over time, but it takes a while. Let's see here. I want to smooth in this little tendril. It's not doing very well over here. Okay. So these are going to be pretty fragile, this one. But once I reinforce it with the water effects, that should give it some staying power. So I'm going to flatten this down, get this blended in, this spell effect here. I want to keep the braid effect a little bit that I did, but I'm going to break it up. So I'm going to kind of press it. And since this green is still very, very flexible, I can really pull it apart a little bit and make it a little more interesting. And mostly I'm looking for a more intricate magic kind of effect, right? And I want to do something to these guys. So these little spikes here, I don't like them. So I could bend them if I had done some hot water work, but instead, I think I want to cut them off a little bit and use them as spring off points. Or shave them. I guess they're pretty sharp. I'm going to try to work with them. I'm going to get a tiny bit of green. And I'm going to work it kind of where it's pointed at the end. And I'm going to try to, I need to make it smaller. You always have more green than you think. Like you're like, I need this much green. Then you look at the scale and you're like, oh, I need a tiny bit of green for this. Yeah, get in there. Nope, it wants to stick to my fingernail. Fingernails are far nicer for green than plastic. There we go. And then a little one down here. There. All right. So I want to just make this a more interesting spell effect. Yep. Yeah, those are the lamps I'm talking about. The ones we have in Artist Alley, the ones we have at Paint Club. It's the lamp that I found long ago, but Ed thought it was a great option for the cons and paint clubs as well. I've got a little bit of a blurf on the side of my spell effect here. Alrighty. So I want to wrap this green around this little spike of spell effect that's already sculpted. I don't want to obliterate his hand in the process, so I need to watch this finger and make sure that I'm just wrapping it around the spike. Oh, I blorfed my end. So this is where I've got to watch it because it's going to become too easy to fingerprint parts of this soon. So I just blorfed the end there, so I'm going to have to fix it a little bit. Because the temptation is to balance your finger there, but it's really not a good idea. So we'll just smooth that out. Luckily, it was immediately apparent to me that I was doing so because I could feel the sticky. So I'm not going to do too much more before I let this set up a little bit, so I'm not fighting with it. So essentially working off of that little spur. I'm not sure if I'm going to like this, so I can always take it off. I kind of want to elongate that. If I can stretch this out, which I'm going to gently do, kind of rolling it in my fingers, then I can spread it up here and get it kind of going in the same direction as all the rest of this stuff. I do want to kind of connect it though, so I need to watch where my end of that is. I think I need to make it a little longer. There we go. There we are. So that's more interesting. Yeah, that's what I was going to do, Fendrick, was to make them point this way. That was the plan. Because that's my problem with it, is it should all be going in the same direction, right? So there's that. That's looking good. The top one doesn't necessarily need to be all that long. Let me just smooth in around the finger here. But yeah, this is the kind of fiddly, kind of filigree, really fine work that you can do. This is the kind of thing that would never go on molds, so you have to learn to convert it yourself if you want it. There are other things I could be doing also for this to support the structure, but I'm not working with them right now. There are lots of different ways to like set up this sort of thing. I've got to blend this in on the other side here with these little energy bits. I am wiping out some of these, the energy texture kind of stuff. So either I'll end up freehanding it or I'll end up putting it in with water effects. I kind of want this to marry up to that. So I kind of want to smoosh it onto that. Hold on. Got to get it in the right position for this little tail of green. It's fiddly work, very fiddly work. There, now I can smoosh it onto that. Set it. There we go. So this is all this, and this will end up looking much cooler. Much cooler, I think you'll all agree. I have a little bead of water here on my plastic, and I'm just pulling from that to moisten my tool. Lets me limit the amount of water a little bit better. So now I want to pull this one up. Let me grab it. Kind of just pull it out gently with the fingertips to make it a little longer. And if I turn it a little bit, like spiral it a little bit, that's not a bad idea. This spike is a little taller, so it's being a little bit more resistant to me. But it also is giving me a little bit more of a firm surface. Now I do want to kind of disguise this spike where it's going into there, but I might need to wait for that to set up to do it. Some of these things we definitely need to wait. I am going to take a little tiny bit of green though and join these up. So I've got this down here. I can just cut it with my tool. Grab part of that. Kind of roll it into a shape that I can use, i.e. a tiny little ball. Grab it with my tool. Put it right where those two intersect. Perfect. Grab my water. Gotta be real careful now because this is all wet. But I just want to smoosh it onto there. Join up that wire and the tip of this other spell effect. Also remember, we're not necessarily, there's going to be stuff between this green and like the outside world because we're still doing water effects over the top of this to get kind of a more translucent energy effect. We might do a couple different layers of it, but mostly I want to blend all this stuff together. But it doesn't need to be a perfect blend is my point, because we're going to set this up, we're going to paint it, we're going to put some water effects over the top of it. We may even paint over those water effects and put more water effects. It all depends on how it comes together and how I feel about it. But the water effects are going to be the true outer texture. So what this is more like a Greenstuff armature for the water effects. Don't know if I really want that. I think I do though. I think I just need to get it a little longer. Boom. So the good news is we don't need to perfectly blend all this stuff in, right? Because it's already kind of a rough spell effect kind of texture. So it's not like we're trying to blend it into a very smooth surface. It's pretty forgiving. I'll blend it in a little bit to my tendrils of energy here and there. But I kind of want to paint them as if they're overlapping tendrils too, so I don't mind if I'm not blending in some of this stuff. And this is okay. It could use a little bit more work. So again, anytime you've got a thin, unsupported green stuff area, it's going to be pretty fragile. So we need to kind of remember that and kind of curve it already so that if it does take a hit, it's not going to just disintegrate. But green is pretty rubbery, so I think we've got a little bit of, there we go. So now when I put the, when I come back with my water effects, I can bridge with the water effects. I can bridge this spell effect with the rest of it. And I can also layer water effects over the top, and that'll make it very rubbery and springy and a little bit resilient to being broken, even though I've got this, this prong facing forward. So that's where we are. I kind of want a little bit of a ripply effect along the top of this wire and the bottom of this wire. But I think I need to maybe just save that for water effects. Maybe I want a little bit. I think this wire is not problematic because it's wrapping around like this way. And so it's not going to look like it's out of place with the rest of it. I want to blend that in a little bit better. Need more water. But overall, I'm liking this spell effect. I think it's a lot more wicked than the beginning spell effect. I like it a lot. Water Effects is a Woodland Scenics product. I have an ancient bottle of it, but it's perfectly usable. It was new a long time ago. So it's a heavy-bodied, moldable product. It's similar to, actually, I could do this same thing with some of my Liquitex moldable mediums, I think. If I used the flexible modeling paste, I think. The flexible one. Except that those they're not all clear. Like, a lot of those are actually white. So I might use the flexible modeling paste and then use the water effects over the top. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, green users, right? I want that with this because obviously I don't want it to break off. I don't want it to snap. So the flexibility will work for me here. It works as kind of just a reinforcer. But yeah, so this stuff I love to use. My favorite use for it is ice effects and icicles, because you can make killer icicles with it. Like, they look real. They're just awesome. And then I've also done wave tops. Like the spray coming off of wave tops. It's really versatile stuff. I feel like this stuff is one of the most underrated, like, diorama components ever. Like, I feel like you could do so much with it if you're willing to just learn to work with it as a sculpting medium. The Legend of the Five Rings stuff? Yes, I painted some of that. And then the license went down. Ed always disliked working with licenses for that reason. Because you put work and time into the corporate relationship, you produced a lot of product that the fans liked or didn't, but then, the whole thing could just fall to pieces if the other company decided it wasn't worth it, or if Reaper decided it wasn't worth it. So yeah, Ed was always, okay, we're gonna let that set up a bit, but I hope you guys think it's cool. I like it. I think it's pretty neat. We got a lot of interesting negative space. From that angle, it's killer. Yeah, this is a much better spell effect. This is a much more wicked spell effect. I like it. Cool. And we're still going to do even more to it. Unfortunately, the more cool we make it, the more we're going to have to balance it with some awesome stuff on Mr. Necromancer dude. Because right now his spell effect is cooler than he is. I thought that they weren't WotC at that point, Shotakami. I didn't think they got bought up till after. Yeah, except you could never do this with, you could never put this on mold. It's got too much negative space. That's why you learn to use green. That's why you learn to use. Oh, did they back in that day? Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's do some flagstones. I'm gonna get my green pressed out really thin as I can do it. I could use a roller for this if I had one. I don't have one right here, so guess what works like a roller, guys? Any brush handle you own. Always roll out your green on plastic because you can peel it right up. No, Richard, we did not do water effects. We set up our green stuff. So we sculpted out our our kind of Midland spell effect and made it a really cool spell effect. And then after this is all set, then I'm probably going to paint it once, and then I'm going to go over it with water effects, and then I'm going to maybe touch up, paint it a little more, and then I might go over it with water effects again, depending on how I like it. But that's not going to probably happen today because I realized I really wanted to set up some green work. Oh no, it stuck to my tool. No, it happens. I didn't use enough water. But that's okay because it's green and it's easy to play with. So let's get some water on it. Yeah, it was a long time ago. It was back, it was after we built the new factory, but it was, come on. Now my green is going really sticky. It's sulking. It's like, you tried to roll me with inadequate water, and now I'm going to come back and bite you. I just want to be this thin, want it to be thin so I can move it around the base that I've got. Also, this lets you smooth it without having to press it down into the base, so you can actually get it pretty flat. Pretty easy. Don't care if there are imperfections, because it's stone. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yes, the L5 harmonies were a very long time ago. I think my favorite was the Tom Meyer female samurai of the House of the Dragon. I think she was a dragon. All right. Now, if we were doing a cloth, by the way, we would roll this really thin, then we'd let it set up, and then we would peel it off. But I'm not letting it set up, which is my problem. I probably should. So this is where, if you're working with green, you have to exercise patience sometimes. I don't like patience today, so I'm not. Because it'll work better if you let it set up just a little bit. Because remember, you can sculpt on this for a good long time. And the longer you wait, the different qualities it will exhibit. So right now it's really stretchy. It's very taffy. And that's not necessarily what we want, but I kind of want to get to work on this, so I'm not waiting. If I wanted to preserve my smooth surface a little bit better, I would wait and let it set a little bit so that it was more of a sheet. But instead, I'm going to plop it on and cut it up and get it moving. I do have patience walking harder, but I don't often have patience when I'm on stream because I really just want to move forward, which is why when I'm doing something like this, which definitely needs to set before we do more work, I have to have another project to work on. Because, you know, you can't just stop on stream and put on the timer and sing the Jeopardy song. It doesn't work. Yep. I don't work with fishing line on that. I find that fishing line is a little too flexible for me. I work with clear plastic card instead. But for really thin, for drool, I agree. But for wave tops, I think I would either build up the water effects in layers, partially setting. And that's the thing you can do with water effects. So we're going to flatten this down, guys. And then we're going to cut down into it to create another level. We're going to press down. We'll press down right around where the other base was, because this just makes sense. Because I want these to kind of be overlapping, almost stones that are cracked and kind of like have settled at different angles. So this has a flaw, so I'm going to cut it right down there. And now I'm going to trim off the sides. I could use almost any tool for this. It has to have a sharp edge, so the leaf tool or the hockey stick tool is pretty good for that, I would imagine. Again, cutting can be a lot easier if you wait for the putty to set up a little bit. So I'm going to kind of figure out where I want to cut it. I'm going to do a little line right around where the base is, and then I'm going to start just pressing down into it to cut off a section. And I can take my tool. Oh no, it's sticking. That's okay. And then I can peel that off. Again, if I'd let it set up, I wouldn't have had the sticky problem as much, if at all, and I would have had a much neater cut as well. Uh-oh. Yep. Yeah, no links. Actually, it was the reason, a little piece of trivia for you, Shotokami, but those models were the entire reason the Golden Skin Triad got created when it did. Because I wanted an Asian skin tone to paint those Legend of the Five Rings models, and we didn't have one, and no other company was making a good Asian skin tone. So Golden Skin, 9090, 9091, 9092, no, 9091, 9092, and 9093 is Reaper's Asian Skin Triad. And I have had an Asian student of mine email me and pretty much like thank me profusely for creating it because it looks right. So if you are looking for an Asian skin tone that's kind of out of the bottle good that then you can kind of doctor and tweak, we got it. Yeah, and if you want that darker Mongol look, you start with the shadow, and if you want a more moderate tone, you start with the mid-tone, and maybe you do a glaze or you wash with the shadow. I need to make this more regular. It's too straight. Too straight. And then I need to cut it more too. I'm going to start playing around. I have a little bit of time still while this is setting up. I need to smooth it down. I need to make it flat. Make it feel flat. I need to make a gap between these stones. So I'm just perforating a line in there. Yeah, well, that's okay. You can just add white or linen white or bleached linen to the midtone. That's losing the highlight is almost never a problem. Losing the shadow is a huge problem. And this is where I wish that Reaper would have consulted me more on cancellations. Because knowing that, sometimes you have to use intelligent cancellation. Like, if you really want a workable line, in my opinion. And this is not a corporate attitude, so most corporate people would be like, but that's the color that doesn't sell, so we need to cancel that one. And it's like, no. What you need to do is feature that one so that it gets stronger in sales and cancel the highlight, which is easy to mix. But, you know, woulda, coulda, shoulda. She's not that dark. I think it varies though, right? Shotokami? Because, I mean, I'm thinking about like a really tanned, deep, been out in the sun all the time. Like, chances are your assistant is not like out in the sun like the Mongols riding horses all the time. We're out in the sun, right? I mean, I hope she's not like riding through the countryside pillaging on her weekends. I'm going to try to separate these out a little bit more. Got to give myself a little bit more room here. Wood putty would FD. If I really wanted to do this right, I should have used wood putty. But as it is, I'm just creating a rim here. Oh, an electrical engineer. Right. Interesting. That's pretty cool. So I'm essentially want to make this stone up a little bit more. So you can see how I'm pressing that down. I'm going to create another little crack here. I need to make these stones look like they're in the same, like not underlying each other, but next to each other, that they've just sunk over time. Yeah, but some colors are easier to mix than others. That's why I say always cancel the highlight. Because chances are the highlight is honestly just the mid-tone with more white added, or sometimes it's also a little less black or a little less brown or a little less whatever, right? And then you also are adding white, or sometimes you're adding yellow and white. But in general, mixing a workable highlight is super easy. Whereas creating a shadow, you have to really know how to mix. You missed the good stuff, Aphistic. You missed the fantastic spell effect. The beginning of the fantastic spell effect. Now I'm just like using my leftover green stuff to try to create some giant flagstone, cracked stones that don't suck, which is proving to be difficult today. It's the 13th. It's Thursday the 13th. And my flagstones are saying, nope. I want to make little flat stones there. I don't know what Pen Addict is. Should I? Or will it be bad for my pocketbook? It sounds like it could be bad for my pocketbook. Because I like pens. And I need to replace my fountain pen. It finally died. Yeah, I have a favorite fountain pen, but my fountain pen finally kicked to the bucket after years and years of service. Probably because I didn't know how to clean it very well. But I definitely have a favorite fountain pen. There is no other for me. So we're making bigger stones. If I can find it walking harder, I actually have misplaced it. I need to like hunt it down. So you missed this. No, at Zeke, everybody's coming in late, and then they totally missed like the cool spell effect sculpting session. You mean makes it my favorite, Tyler, because I'm getting another one, but it's a super expensive fountain pen. It is actually the I laugh because my ex used to say that he was really frustrated with me because I would never buy anything frivolous. Everything I bought had practical use, and he gave me money for, I don't know, Christmas or birthday, and he told me, I want you to spend this on something frivolous. So I went out, and I bought a fountain pen, which is useful, but I bought a very expensive fountain pen. So it was a frivolous expenditure on a useful item, so I still won. He was somewhat disgusted. But it is the Pilot Amber Namiki Custom 823 fountain pen. 14 karat gold nib. I prefer the fine to the bigger ones. It is a vacuum chamber fountain pen. So you refill it by actually via plunger. It has a little chamber that actually your little plunger creates a vacuum, and that's how you slurp the ink up into it. It is fantastic. Oh, I know this one can be. I tried actually to clean mine, but it resulted in actually bad leakage. So I came to the conclusion. There is a shop just down in Carmel, actually. When we go down there for art, I could probably get it cleaned. But like I said, first I have to find it. I'm not sure if I kept it. I don't know where it may have like frittered off to. I haven't been able to find it on an easy sweep of my office. But it is a beautiful fountain pen. It is super reliable. Well, yeah, but you can enjoy your item while you are alive. He just liked stuff, though. See, I'm not like that, Major. I used to be a stuff person, but moving so many times in a very short period of time cured me of pack ratism. Like, there was a point in my life where I moved almost more than once a year, until I settled down in Denton. And it cures you of pack rat. Like, for me, it did anyway. So I stopped caring as much about stuff. And instead, I still like quality stuff. And, I mean, but I was never, like, into just buying stuff to buy stuff, right? It has to have a use for me. Like, often I will look at something, and if it's like, well, would I really use that? Or is it just stuff? And I just won't buy it. Because I'm happier with less clutter in my life. So now we finally, our stones are starting to get there. Pilot G2, huh? Pilot's got good fountain pens. See, I actually didn't lose this one for a decade, Fistic. Only when it broke did I lose it. Before, I used it every day for my journaling. Like, I really love fountain pens. Yeah, I'm planning to buy a new one. I'm just going to save up. It is a $300+ pen. But it was just so reliable and always, like, I never got blobs. I never got, it never didn't want to write. It's just really good. So here I've got to probably work this stone into another stone, but I'm going to keep that kind of squarish look because I kind of like it a little. Around the corner just a tad. Yeah, I told you it was a frivolous purchase, Major. I will admit that I bought it because it is Neil Gaiman's favorite fountain pen. He actually wrote a blog entry about it, and that's what attracted my attention to it. So I already kind of had an eye on it as something I would never have the money or the reason to buy. So I'm going to use this rough surface, guys, to add some pockmarks and features to my little rocks before they are set. But yeah, it's definitely something that, especially now that I'm just living on my Patreon and stuff, like I have to wait for a tax return or something, right? Oh yeah. Yes, or more, Fistic. I think there's a $10,000 one in the pen shop in Carmel. Like, they have super high-end ones. Like, they don't, they were out of stock on the Pilot one that I like when I went down there last when we were in Carmel, which is just south of Monterey, if you're wondering. But they're a very, very nice shop. They obviously have a high-end clientele, and they've got, like, the Hogwarts fountain pen, the special limited edition, super special case, super special. I just looked at the guy, and I'm like, who even writes with that? He's like, yeah, they don't. They just keep it in a box. I'm like, what a waste! But yeah, so there are some crazy... I'm going to just flatten out the edge on this stone a little bit. Crazy fountain pens out there. Because Greenstuff stuff does tend to bulge a little bit when you press it in. So you want to remove that artifact if you don't want it. But that's looking nice. I like these big flat. Yeah, I like these. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You display it. It's not really for use. But then why make it why a fountain pen? I don't know. Fountain pens, I think, get sad if they can't write anything. All right. So we used a good chunk of our leftover green to set up some nice big flagstones with some... I think I'm going to add a little bit of a crack on this one. So we can use the edge of a small tool, or we can use a little hooky thing here to create a little crack in our stone to give it some features. Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, we were looking at pen blanks. That was actually some of the basing stuff that David and I bought to use with our models was pen blanks, because you can get the decent sized one, just cut them into sections, and then you've got great plinths for your little models. So we have a saw. So now I want to kind of look at the edges here because they're kind of mucky. So I want I think I want I don't know if I want this or not. I don't mind if they're not totally flat, but I want to clean them up. So I'm going to grab my one of my clay shapers, the chisel. I'm just going to come in and kind of clean up some of this where I can see tool marks. Kind of flatten those out a little. See, now the green is set up enough that I can like press a little bit and not deform the entire block. It's not soft, not totally soft enough as it was. So now that's a lot smoother. These I got a set of. The Clay Shaper Extra Firm size 0 comes in a set. These little guys were ones that Julie made for me or made for people and gifted me a set of at ReaperCon last year. She gave them to David, who brought them home to me. This one is one, Tiny Spoon is one that Jean made that I've used for years and years and has been my favorite sculpting tool for years and years. These guys, the metal ones, big giant spoon and spade chisel, and my other chisel that I really like are old dental tool sets. It's wax carving or wax sculpting tools, and I bought a set of those. So 2 of them come in sets, and 3 of my favorite tools were handmade by sculptors I admire. And I just got lucky with those. So yeah, but you can get decent tools with the wax. I mean, for years I just sculpted with these guys because like Tiny Spoon and Spade and Leaf Shape are all great, but if you have a good spade tool, like this is a wax carving tool, but you've got one with a good point on it, that can do a lot that this can do, right? It's just that these guys are much smaller, so for miniatures, you can get finer effects sometimes. But you can also go looking for things like tiny crochet hooks and stuff that will do kind of the same thing. And I think my pointer tool, which is also a nice like detail, you can use it as a detail creation tool. Pointer tool was a separate wax sculpting purchase. It was not part of the set that I got. I also have one of the old Wax 5 equivalents from Patrick Keith, who is selling the sculpting tool he likes to use as of a while ago. But I mean, you can totally do a fistic this thing. This is just a piece of brass rod of this thickness that's been hit, shaped with a ball peen hammer and probably some diamond files or sandpaper, and put into a dowel. So it's not anybody can do this. Like, this is a pretty easy tool to make. So I think that Andy Pieper, tail spinner, he did a class on how to make your own tools. Although there were much complaints because the anvil was very loud, so he has a mini anvil to work on with that kind of thing. But yeah, it is perfectly possible to make your own tools for cheap. And if you're trying to do specific mods and you have an image in mind of the shape you need and the size you need, and you have some basic tools like a ball peen hammer and some files and sandpaper of various grades, chances are you can make your own. You just need to find an appropriate piece of brass or aluminum or whatever to work with. Just trying to clean up my edges here a little bit. The chisel's nice for this kind of thing too, separating out this stone from the bottom stones, kind of cutting in a little bit of a recess. Again, I don't want to push it too much because I could deform this surface if I pushed it too much. My green is still workable enough for that, which gives you an idea of how long green is actually workable. Quite a long time. Because it's still workable even though we're almost at the end of stream. So that's over an hour now. Pretty cool in the house this morning, so that helps. When you're in a warm climate, or it's a warm season, or your room is warm, your green will set up faster. So be aware. Yeah, That's nice. I like this. I like the little crack there is good. I'm excited. Today is writing day to work on the book. Channels into the plastic model. You know, not sure. Dremel, maybe? Low speed Dremel? Not sure. Not sure on that. I mean, most people I know don't actually drill channels. They run the wires through the inside of the model and drill holes to run them through and then disguise that with green. Because the problem with digging a channel through the model is you could create a lot of damage, right? Whereas if you run the wires through the inside of the model and just drill a hole where they need to come out, that, depending on the model, can work a little better. Works better with like GW models, which have a lot of empty space in the middle. Yeah, it just depends if you need a specific or you want a very specific shape, Richard. Because sometimes the wood is also going to stick a little bit more to the green. Sprue sounds a little more promising, although it's not as firm. So if you really need to mash the green stuff, you're not as enabled on that. I could see how it could work in a pinch. If you didn't have anything else and you just need to shove some green around, you're not trying to do super fine stuff or detail. All right, I might want to notch another, make a crack over on this side. I think I want that other tool. Yeah, hand drill. Might get, yeah. I mean, you could possibly do a pin vise, I don't know, it would slip. The problem is when you're doing a groove along the top of something or underside of something, I would think it would be hard to keep that consistent, and I would think it would be easy for it to slip. I don't know. Yeah, it's outside of my my expertise, so listen to other people because I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing as I'm sculpting my little cracked piece of stone. The bottom line is always, does it work? If it works for you, then great, use it. But yeah, that kind of thing probably, though we do have some modelers here who work on vehicles, that would be a good question for an IPMS forum or Facebook group. Because IPMS does a lot that's very plastic kit central and very vehicle centered. Chances are somebody has tried to do what you've tried to do. So if you have an IPMS group in your area and they have a forum or a Facebook group or something like that, you could join up with them and get some tips. And that's International Plastic Modelers Society, by the way. Yeah, IPMS. They are the people on there. The grandmasters in IPMS are crazy, crazy good. Fistic, crazy, crazy good. And those people could be a big resource for you. So there. Okay. Yep. Cool, Hyper Bunny. Yeah, going to IPMS shows can be a really nice way to kind of see what's possible. Because there's, like I said, there's some... You'll see everything from just, like, basic people just starting out to the people who are insanely, like, modeling a broken down classic car with, like, old magazines tumbled in the back, and they've, like, hand cut the pages of the magazines and painted or printed stuff, and it's just crazy good. Yeah, they do really good. Ah, yeah. Julie with the cuticle pushers and tools in the nails department in stores. So fingernails, like, that stuff. No, next time I work on these minis, Polly, I'll do it. I still will probably have, because I'm just, since he is replacing her, but she's not done yet and he's not ready to paint, I'm just working on both at the same time. And since I have to work on him in stages, it makes sense to have a project to work on when I'm, like, don't want to be impatient on him, because I want this spell effect to turn out really awesome. And I'm still thinking about doing a little mini diorama base, so. Yeah, what those guys do is almost a totally different hobby. I agree. Yeah, vehicles are not, like, that's why I say vehicles are my weakness. Like, I'm not interested enough in them to spend the time to get as amazing as I know they can be, because I've gone to historical model shows, I've gone to an IPMS show, I know how incredible some of those people are. Mold line, Fistic. There was a mold line that was recessed and not easily, you couldn't hit it with a knife or a file very easily at all. Probably would have been almost impossible to remove. And so when I come across a really rough area where I can't just fix it with files, like here it was an actual, like, pitting issue, and there it was a recessed mold line, because you can see where the sleeve dips in there. It's almost impossible to remove a mold line at that point. You just putty over it, and I just use green because I'm so used to green now. It's a good practice for me to keep my green skills, like, up there too. So anywhere you see green on the sleeves is that it was a mold issue. So. Oh, cool. Yeah, remember to use a little bit more paint, Tyler, for the wall palette. You want at least 6 drops of fluid, and it'll work better with 8. And that's fluid combined between paint and water. That'll keep your paint wet for longer and at the right consistency. Oh yeah, they use a lot of different products and tools because they're trying to do different things, and a lot of them use more solvents than we do. Yeah, that's a great way to get your toe in the water and get some good feedback. So yeah, Hyper Bunny. Hopefully you have a good group where you are. I mean, just like any mini painting group, sometimes you get grognards and trolls, but just, stay open-minded and, like, see if at the very least they can give you constructive feedback on, like, what's the next technique you should try. Or if they think you should just build another kit, right, from the box. And if you build, like, 3 kits from the box, then you're going to get to the point where you can start pushing it a little, right? So it's fun anyway. I mean, I used to build model cars when I was a kid. I just never got to the point of painting them. I just never understood how to make it work or look good because I was just a kid, and my dad had never been into that hobby, so he wasn't involved to help. Oh. But yeah, the making a kit from the box by the box instructions is kind of equivalent to Reapercom painters category, where you're only judged on the paint job, not the quality of the conversion or basing or anything like that. Oh, that's good. Excellent, Fistic. Yeah. They're usually looking for new blood. Like, a lot of times you'll find some guys in there that have been doing this for 50 years. No joke. So, yeah, I hope you have a good one. And a lot of them have shows. Competitions. So, yeah. I hope you find some kindred souls. Kindred souls and people who are willing to like help you up your game and like solve your problem. Good deal. All right. Well, it's about 10 after, and we got a good amount done. So I got that first stones done. That's exactly how I wanted it to look. I want to have some dead grass growing up through some of those cracks and some dead leaves scattered artistically around. That's my kind of the goal for the necromancer's base. I'm going to put away my tools real quick here. But yeah, so that's what we did there. And then we got the cool spell. I'm really, really happy with the way my spell effect is coming. Very, very super happy about it. Put away the Julie tools so they don't get lost. But yeah, really, really happy with that spell effect. I can't wait to see how it ends up turning out. I think it's going to be kick butt. Yeah, I will not be streaming on my own channel this weekend. I will be at my Mark Mouse Cleanse class instead. Probably not for as long as they would like me to be at it, because I'm going to be coming home to like kiki out and do all that stuff. It is the off week for Reaper Live, so it is not on tonight. Tomorrow, those of us who are here will be working on the mouse. It's the mouse time. We had gotten his the start of his gray fur working last time. And I think I'm going to warm it up a little bit. So we'll do some glazing on his fur. And I also I probably want to finish the fur before I glaze all of it. But yeah, so we did his little ears thing, and we're working on the mouse. Working on the mouse. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for telling me about the review, Turgeon. That's awesome. I love my book reviews. I love them. Oh, stretch. But yeah. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll see some of you tomorrow. All right? Have a great one. Bye-bye.